Hello everybody and welcome back to Mackenzie Woodworking. So our project today is a concrete countertop for our outside kitchen. So here it is here. Here's some after pictures of it, and I'm showing you some concrete countertops that we've done in the kitchen over the years. This one's in the back of the fireplace. It's about 12 years old. And this was a reverse form. That means where you pour your form and then flip it over. Here's one that was done the same way. We built it upside down and then flipped it over, and this is on our pizza oven outside, and right beside this will be where the countertop is going to go. But so this one, what we have here, this was built about 7 or 8 years ago, and it was cypress wood, and it should have lasted a lot longer, but it didn't. But it's outside, and we live in the Northwest. And you can see this was cypress and it was painted, but it's all rotten. And so we're going to take this all apart and put in a concrete countertop. And we'll add some coloring to it. And this will be poured traditionally, which means we'll be building a form around it and then troweling the top and then putting a glaze on it. So follow along and I'll show you what I had to do is to prep it and get it all in. First thing, there's a lot of weight here. With the wood before, we just had hangers off of board on the back, but now I wanted to put some posts down, so we put some posts to support the extra weight. Took off all the old debris on one side and then put some boards to support some paper, and on this side here we're going to be putting down 1-inch styrofoam as well, high density blue board. So there's a 30 weight tar paper and then our blue styrofoam, and I've cut it back 1 inch from the sides, so it'll actually be back about 2.5 inches from all the edges. And here's our bottom board that we're putting on. You notice I'm putting tuck tape on it. And what the tuck tape will do is that it'll keep the concrete wetter longer. It'll keep the moisture in the form. And if you want harder concrete, the longer you can keep the moisture in it, the better. So I'm just showing here, I'm using some styrofoam for the dam there. Same thing here. So our nosing will be 1.5 inches wide by 3.5 inches deep. And I'm just checking, so the top of the form will have 1.5 inches of concrete, and we're just laying that up. And you can see the tar paper is all down, and you can see on the back side what I've done is ran some screws on the back side as well. So on the front here we're just running some 2¼ inch screws, and the screws I'm using are coated, porcelain coated, and I'm going to wrap some wire around them and go from screw to screw. And what this will do is if the nosing does crack for any reason, the wire and screws will bind it all together as one. So it basically works like a cage wire, concrete wire. So just making sure that's lower cement, and that's right in the center, and the screws are projected out. And you can see the tuck tape I've got on the bottom. So we have our fascia on there, form board, and on this side here we're using 6x6 steel, and we're just checking on our heights here. You can see in the back side there, I've got some off the steel in the wall, I've got some hex head self-tapping screws into the steel, and so the concrete will bond into it. And on the edge boards, if you want to spray a release, anytime you're putting any concrete around a cooking area or anything, use a food safe spray, like a vegetable spray. I believe that's canola oil, but it's a food safe spray. And these are the trowels we're going to use. So we have a margin, that's a small square one, and then a masonry trowel, a bricklayer's trowel. There's a magnesium float, our steel trowel, And then we have a long float. This one here was probably made about 15 years ago, and it's edge grain, and I just took an old handle off a trowel that we're gonna throw out. And here's our color. So that's a Toulouse red, and we're adding some ochre to it. So it'll be 1 cup of Toulouse red and 1 cup of ochre, and that'll be going into the bag. And there's some dark grout. We'll be using that later on. That won't be going into the concrete. And I use a quick crete, so it's all mixed up. We'll be doing 2 bag pour. So there'll be two of those small cups of color for each bag. One of the ochre and one of the Toulouse. Just give it a good mix. And this will be going on the other side, and one I'll be doing on the first one, because you're not going to see the color, and we're only coming up a 3/4 of an inch. So my first base coat, I'll just be going with a cement. There'll be no color to it, and then we'll just put down our wire into it. I'm just showing you the mix that we have there, and I'm making this a little bit firmer. The coat that will be going on top, it'll have a little bit more moisture in it. There's our wire. We're just pushing it down into this cement. You want to be at least a 1/2 inch off the bottom. That's all placed in, and nothing's projecting up. And that's a dry mix. And now my second mix will mix up some concrete with a colorant in it, and then we can flood into the front. And if you're doing it this way to save on your colorant and stuff, make sure that you don't flood any of the gray cement into the front, because it'll show whenever you take off your parge board the difference in colors. So like I said, anyway, it's and when you're adding colorant, and if you're doing multiple pours or multiple wheelbarrows, have a container so that you know exactly how much you put in the portion of. So if you're making a small batch or a half bag, I actually had to mix up a half bag, so I knew to put in half a cup of each to have the same color. And I like to give it a dry mix first, just to mix it all around before I put the water into it. And on my top coats, I like to make them a little bit wetter, so they'll kind of self-level. Not too wet though, but this will give you a nice slump. And I'm just making sure that all that color and everything is mixed all the way through. And then we'll transfer it into the form. And I like to go all the way around and load the front portion, the nosing and the sides. And my size again was 1.5 inches by 3.5 inches on the front, and then the main field was 1.5 inches thick with wire in it, concrete wire. And I have a line on the back side, which I've already penciled off, so that's what I'm trying to follow. You guys can't really see that, so what I'll do is on the other side I'll actually put some tape above the line. That's a good way, and then you can see that your level line that you're trying to follow. And I'm just using my mag to get in there and make a nice clean edge in the back. And tapping the face, you want to tap that to make sure you don't have any air bubbles in it. get that cement down into it. I should have used a hammer because I ended up having a clean up on the white siding. I got a little bit of cement all over it. It's always good to have a hammer on you and just give it a few taps. Now that I get that sort of placed in, what I'll do is take my wood float and just double check it and make sure that it's flat and there's no dips in it. And just float across the back. And you can see that's nice and straight. Now I can just go from the front across to the back, and this will make it nice and flat all the way along. You don't need a board on the back if you have a line, and you can just go from that and make that first your ledge that you're going to ride on. So we just float that up. I'll do that a couple of times, and then I'll go back to it with the mag. And then I'm using my margin just along the side, and we'll scrape off the edge so that we're not riding high on it. And I'll let this sit for about a half an hour before I get back at it with my magnesium trowel. Just give it a touch up there. You'll find these small margin trowels are really handy if you're getting into corners and stuff. They're inexpensive, and if you're doing some home projects, they're a great little trowel to have. Okay, so it's sat now for about, I believe, for about a half an hour, and we'll just give this another shot with the magnesium, get it flatter. And the same thing, and then we'll give it some time. We'll go back to it. Here's the other side. You can see I put some tape up there so that you guys can see the line that we're following, and I'll bring up all the cement to it. And on this side here, I had some leftover stucco wire that you put on the outside of the house, and it's crimped and stuff, and I've laid that in. The wire is just to hold the cement together if there's any cracks in it. It's not designed in this purpose for strength or anything. And you notice there's no rebar in this. It's because it's supported all the way along. I don't need rebar. And I don't use that fiberglass additive. You can see I'm banging on the front board here to get the cement down. I don't use the fiberglass additive. The problem with that is that it'll work to the surface. And if this is a food prep area, which it is outside of the kitchen, you don't want those fiberglass shafts coming to the surface. I've used them before, and we've used them like on driveways and walkways and stuff. And we've when you're troweling, they'll come up to the top of the surface. You usually have to get a tiger torch and burn them all off. So I'd prefer to use wire in this if you want strength. This isn't a floating slab. There is some support under it, so it doesn't need that. And with the wire, it makes strong enough. And if you have something else, it's I'm a little bit more old school and would rather throw in some rebar. Like I said, the fiberglass additive, the short strands, are good in their place. They're great for sidewalks and driveways and foundations or foundation work, but not for a countertop. I don't recommend them anyways. And here we're just trying to get it flat on the back. I can follow my line now, and I'm using my float board. These small handheld float boards are really great, easy to do. Just get yourself good strong straight board. Get it machined if you have and then you can use it for all kinds of things. We use them for sidewalks, for curbs. And then once you get it floated out, we'll just go in and use the mag again and flatten it all out. And I'll just take the float board to make sure that it's all nice and level. Now I've had this one board for probably about 15 years. So if you keep them clean, they'll last a long time. It's a nice easy tool to throw in your loader and to keep. And this one is 3 feet long with a handle on one end. You can see because of the form boards are covered in tuck tape, they're not sucking the water out of the concrete. The concrete will stay wetter longer, and if you're not used to doing a lot of concrete, if it stays wetter longer, it'll give you more time to work with it. There you can see there, the water is coming up to the surface. It has to evaporate through the top because it won't evaporate through the form boards, and there's tar paper on the bottom, so it's not gonna go through the bottom. If you're pouring a pad or a walkway, the water would go down through the soil unless you had plastic down, but a lot of times it goes out through the sideboards as well. So putting the tuck tape on it's just giving you a little bit more time to work the concrete. It keeps the cement a lot more water retention in it. And now I'm off the mag, and we're just using steel trowel here, and I'll keep going back and forth and clean up all the outside edges first, bring them to the inside, and then you can work flat on the front. You notice I'm putting pressure on the nose of the trowel, and that's bringing in. And so what I'm looking for here too, and I'll stop and pull it along the way, we call them rollers, where a small piece of gravel will work itself to the top. So as you're troweling, it will want to roll in the top, so you just pick that off and throw it away. And we'll get this close, and then we'll leave it for about 10 or 15 minutes. There we go. There's probably the second times. So I've ended up using steel in this about 4 times, and it took about an hour and a half. I had about an hour and a half to work with it. The concrete guy working with me years and years ago, and he always just saying, oh yeah, since we poured the concrete, there's always time to run down to the crown and anchor. Don't do that though when you're pouring concrete. So here's the next day. I let it set overnight, and you can see the color of it. And I'm showing you here how easy these boards come off. You're not banging them and fighting with the countertop to get the boards off. That tuck tape will stop the concrete from bonding to the boards, and it'll just pull right off. And you see, so that you're not banging on the nosing to get them off or anything, and they just fall right off. I do a lot of epoxy projects as well, and this is the same reason to use it. You can see here how once you take the screws out, it just falls off. So I'm showing you a couple of different tools that you can use to do the edge. So we're going to buff off the edge. This is a dry cutter. They're inexpensive. I think they're only about $20 now. You can buy them for a 4.5-inch grinder, and or you can use a masonry on a bigger grinder. and that's what I'll use in this. It's a small job. I want to use smaller tools so that if anybody's planning on doing this, they can just go out and get them. I actually have bigger grinders, and we have diamond wheels. If we're doing a larger project, I'll use the diamond wheels on it. But a masonry disc on a grinder works good. So what I've done is mix up some color and some grout, and we're just going into the fine holes, and I'll do the entire front here. We'll fill all these holes. We'll do it twice, and then just give it a sand off. And once this dries, and then we'll coat the top of it. And so this is just the same proportion of color, and I use a non-sandic grout. The reason I use grout, it dries really quickly. I'll put this on, and I can give it a sand in about half an hour. So there it is there, it's dried, and you notice it's the identical color as the top. And just wipe all the dust off. So there's all kinds of sealers and stuff. I use an industrial sealer. This is a gloss. It's a high gloss, solvent based, but you can get waterborne and stuff. And this will it'll make the color go deeper. And I'm just putting that on with a short nap rope with one of these small finishing rollers. And once I get the product on, I put it on quite liberal. It's self-leveling. And once we get it on a bunch of it, and then I'll back roll it all. I'll go right from the top to the front and the back. Just give it a back roll, touch up the front, and this takes about this dries in about 2 hours, and then I'll come in and I'll sand the top of it with 320 paper, and what I'll do is if there is any dust or anything on it, I'll take off those little bumps, and then I'll put on the second coat. You see this is the second coat going on, and you can see there were some dry spots, so. And once I get it all on, I'll back roll it again. So there it is, it's done. 2 coats. Can't really, I think you can see the shine and the flatness, and came out really good. It's a good, easy project to do at home, and I don't have to worry about the weather coming down through the top of the patio there. And you see it works in quite nice with what I have here. So I hope you enjoyed this project. And if you're having problems with wooden countertops outside in your kitchen, do this. Thanks a lot for watching, and please subscribe. And if you have any questions or anything, please let me know, and I'll answer them as soon as I can. Thank you.